Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. I'm also a doctoral student of psychology. And today I wanted to go over a topic that was requested, I think, a couple months ago. And it kind of was brought up again recently. And it was something that I felt a lot of individuals probably would like to know about. And it's how an avoidant acts when they feel guilty when they hurt you. Now, I'm going to put this video into two sections. And the first section will be when an unhealed avoidant feels guilty. And then the other section will be when an avoidant is changing and they're healing, because they do react differently, okay? And so the first one, we're going to talk about the unhealed avoidant. And I have 6 points for that one. And then we'll move on to the next section. And then we'll kind of talk about it, okay? So the first section, unhealed avoidant. Now, the first aspect or the way they behave when they feel guilty that they hurt somebody, especially when they care about somebody, is they avoid talking about the topic or they get irritated when you bring it up. So let's give an example. Let's say an avoidant individual feels really guilty that they raised their voice at you when you asked about commitment, right? Then the next time you bring it up, or maybe you didn't even bring it up, it was just indirectly brought up somewhere, the avoidant individual may avoid talking about it. They may get irritated. Why do you keep bringing that up? Whatever it may be. And often the reason why is somewhere subconsciously, they may not even be aware of it entirely until they heal, is there's a part of them that feels hurt. They do feel hurt that they were unable to give you that when they wish they could. Because a lot of times individuals who are unhealed, just because they're unhealed doesn't mean they don't care about you. And so what ends up happening is they react very poorly to cover up their own feeling. It's not really you. They're avoiding feeling the negativity that they feel when they hear you talk about it, when they hear that they've disappointed you. They're not irritated or trying to shut you down. They're doing it because whatever that noise is, which is you or their own noise in their mind, that's making them feel uncomfortable for what they've done, that is what they're trying to shut down. It's not you, but it does come out at you, right? So they're avoiding the conversation, they're getting irritated, they're getting annoyed, whatever it may be, but it's not because they're mad at you, right? They're uncomfortable that they haven't done the right thing and they don't know why. They feel stuck, honestly, and it's not an excuse, but I am telling you why this happens, okay? The next one, and this one is really common, and it's pretty unfortunate because it can confuse a lot of people. They downplay what really happened. It comes from guilt. It really does, where the individual may feel, they do feel uncomfortable and they want to act like it's denial. It's a defense mechanism. And there are plenty of defense mechanisms. If anybody kind of has some well-versed of psychodynamic therapy, which is the type that I do, defense mechanisms in of itself can be subconscious. Most of it is. And it's when the individual uses some sort of maladaptive strategy to distract or avoid some form of discomfort or emotional volatility that they don't know how to process, right? And so downplaying what really happened is not because they're trying to dismiss you, even though it is coming across that way. It comes out that way. But what it actually is they're trying to downplay it because they're trying to tell themselves it's not as bad because they feel like it's bad. They feel uncomfortable. So let's say you said, you've been canceling on me a lot. And in their mind, they're like, I hope I'm not that kind of person. That really hurts me. I don't want to be that kind of person. But you know what? Maybe he or she is just exaggerating. So they may say, you're exaggerating. I don't cancel that much, right? And then you may bring out the facts and be like, no, actually you do. For the last couple times that we hung out, you've canceled and we've had to reschedule. I appreciate that you reschedule, but I wish that you would stop canceling the first moment, right? So it's not necessarily a moment to fight, but it is important to recognize when they are downplaying whatever it is that they're saying, you have to bring them with logical facts because it'll remove some of the denial. Don't react poorly or think that they don't care. That's not going to help because actually what you've done is you've taken the bait of their defense mechanism. It's much more healthier for both of you guys if you react in a way that you're managing that emotion for yourself, but also not falling for their defense mechanism. You don't need to act like it's real because it's not. It's in their subconscious. It's not reality, okay? The next one is they make excuses as to what happened. Now, I see this one a lot as well. And individuals who are avoidantly attached, they definitely do this, but dismissive avoidant, excuse me, but fearful avoidants do this a little bit more. But regardless, it's making excuses. So they might be like, yeah, that did happen, but it's only because you're so difficult, or it only happened because I was tired. And maybe there's some truth to it, but they're using that to avoid how they feel. And how they feel is uncomfortable and guilty, right? But they're using the excuse not just for you to not think about that you feel upset with them, but for them to avoid the guilt. So they're almost reminding themselves, yeah, I did do that, but it's only because I was tired, or only because my mom was being difficult today, whatever it may be. And excuse making is much more common with fearful avoidant, or a little more common, because fearful avoidant individuals, they also have a side of them that's very anxious. And so they feel actually really anxious that you're upset with them. And dismissive avoidants feel they feel scared and uncomfortable that you're upset with them as well. But what happens when dismissive avoidants feel this way, they tend to shut off. Fearful avoidants, they swing between two. So sometimes they'll make a lot of excuses and then they'll pull away. So you'll see that a lot as well. The next one is, this is also more common with fearful avoidance, is they make a promise to change that is often broken. So sometimes they may feel so guilty. They may say, no, I promise I'm going to change, or they may beg for you to get back. But as soon as the guilt goes away, they're detached and they're pulling away again. Dismissive avoidants do this sometimes, but it's never as animated and expressive, right? Fearful avoidance, that trigger of abandonment starts popping up. Dismissive avoidants have that as well, but it's just not as severe. So they make excuses and they make promises, and it is often broken, right? The next one is also more common with fearful avoidance. Sorry if you're a fearful avoidant, I'm not trying to pick on you. A lot of these are more common with fearful avoidance, is they try to change your mind about the reality of it. So it is a form of gaslighting, right? And I know that's a bit of a trigger word, but it is what it is. This is not very common in general, but it does happen, right? Where they're trying to say, no, that didn't happen. This is what happened. Or you're remembering it wrong, right? They're trying to overlap and remove your memory and kind of place their own memory in there, right? And sometimes this happens when they've stepped out of the relationship, right? Where maybe you can say something like, and I'm about to say something that's a little triggering, so be aware. It might be something like, they're talking to a friend, and it doesn't mean they're necessarily cheating, but maybe they're just guilty that they probably don't know how to set their own boundaries properly. So maybe they're talking to their ex a lot, right? And they know probably that's not right, but especially with fearful avoidance, they don't know how to say no. So they're just letting it happen, but they understand why you're uncomfortable because they would be uncomfortable, right? But instead they might say, well, I don't always talk to my ex, or you're mistaken. Like, we never did that together. They change the reality of what really happened. Sometimes they might even lie just to twist things around, and that's not necessarily healthy. In fact, it's very unhealthy, right? And if you are a fearful avoidant and you're trying to manipulate the scene to basically change your partner's mind, it is coming from a sense of fear of control, but it's also because you feel guilty about you doing this. So it's important to accept that why you're guilty. Accept that you don't like hurting your partner and you don't want them to feel sad. It's not just because you're afraid that they're mad at you. It's because you genuinely care about them. It's really important to recognize that, because it is unhealthy and it creates it distracts you from healing, but it also distracts your partner from healing. So it's really important to work on that. The next one is if they feel very guilty. This one is not so common, but I do see it. And I see this more with dismissive avoidance, but it happens with fearful as well. If they feel very guilty about something and they're struggling to manage those feelings, what they actually do is they may actually break up with you, right? And this is somebody who's very unhealed. So communication may not work. However, if you need to, and you should, communicate and mention, what's the reason that you're breaking up? I respect why you're breaking up, but is it because of X, Y, and Z? If you suspect that it's because they're guilty about something, you could mention, look, it hurt me a lot, but I'm not mad at you. Like, I can get over it. I want you to trust that I can handle it. If you genuinely want to break up, that's fine. But if you're breaking up because you feel like I'm mad at you, or I'm upset, or I'm going to crash out, or whatever it may be, I just want you to know that I can manage myself, and there's other ways that we can do this. We can still make this relationship work. I want to. What do you think? Something along those lines. Again, this is an unhealed avoidance. So it is very challenging to communicate with those individuals, right? So if you feel like you are an unhealed avoidant, that doesn't mean all hope is lost. I make quite a bit of videos on ways to communicate for both relationships, but I made one recently about how to become secure and kind of be a long-term relationship or be a soulmate with somebody, kind of connect and be together. And that particular video has a lot of techniques for both sides. So if you are an unhealed avoidant, all hope is not lost. And if you are the partner of an unhealed avoidant, you might like that video as well, just because I don't have time to explain it in this, because that video is pretty long. I think it's like 20 or 30 minutes. I don't have time to fit it in here today, but it's really important to recognize all hope is not lost. There are ways to do this. You guys, if you are a team and you want to make it work, when there's a will, there's a way, typically, right? Okay, so let's go into the next section. And this is a healing avoidant. This does not mean that they are fully healed, although it might be, but it's more likely that they're on the process of healing and they're learning to connect. And so the very first one is that they apologize. And, on top of that, sometimes they might even say, I feel really bad that I hurt you. So we can put that in together. And often when they're apologizing, it's not overly animated or expressive or, looking like it's insincere and trying to put on a show. It's genuinely, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Or you know what? You're right that I do cancel often. It's something I've always struggled with. I'll be honest, sometimes I get really overwhelmed, but thank you for bringing it to me, right? And typically with an apology is, I promise that I'm going to try harder, okay? And hold me to it. Some avoidance, especially if you guys have been together for years, I hear it a lot in session. I've shared this before. A lot of avoidants like to be held accountable. So often they're going to say something like, I promise I'm going to work on this, but give me time. But if you notice I haven't done it, hold me accountable. Tell me. I'm okay with that, right? Just give me time. But apologizing is a huge one, okay? The next one is, this one might be a little tricky, but I'll try and explain it. They explain what happened to add clarity, not to make an excuse. And the main way to tell the difference is because they're okay with you asking questions. They're not avoiding it. And they're also not very animated or expressive to try and gain your trust again, right? Let's just say we're going to talk about the canceling topic again, right? I appreciate that you always reschedule when you cancel and you don't leave me hanging, but you cancel last minute a lot. And it's really frustrating because I'm very intentional with my time. You'd be the partner, right? I'm very intentional with my time and I make time for you. And when you cancel, I could have used that time for something else, something along that line. And their response as the avoidant, the healing avoidant, will say something along the lines of, you're right. I do that. I apologize. I'll be honest with you. I haven't been in a relationship in 10 years. You know that. And so I'm really used to being on my own. And sometimes I don't think about your side as much because I'm so used to thinking about my own side. So I'm going to get better. But I also want you to know this relationship thing is, I haven't done this in a long time. I know I'm stuck in my ways. I know I'm stubborn. I am trying. Be patient with me. But yeah, I don't want to cancel on you anymore. I didn't realize that's how it made you feel, right? Something along those lines. So there was an added clarity as to why. They're not making an excuse. I don't like relationships. I don't want relationships. Sometimes they do that when they're triggered, and they can still do that if they're healing. But if they're calm and the conversation is calm, usually they're just adding clarity to you and it helps you. Okay. They're not doing it because they don't care about me. They do it because they don't have as much experience, right? And that's important to remember. They've been stuck in their ways for a long time. And if you're an avoidant individual, you guys know that part of the reason you are the way that you are is because you're comfortable being alone. And sometimes it's hard to break that habit. So it's just something to recognize that comfort sometimes is not always the best option. Being comfortable is good, but too comfortable can get you in an uncomfortable position one day, interesting enough. So challenging yourself a little bit throughout your life may actually benefit you in the long run. Just something to think about, okay? The next one is makes an effort to change that is visible. And this is it takes a while. It's not going to happen overnight. But if you stop and look back and realize, let's talk about the canceling thing. And let's say we fast forward 1 year from when that conversation happened, and you realize genuinely your partner really doesn't cancel anymore. And yeah, that happens where sometimes the issue is just gone, which is great, right? That's what we want. And you look back and you think, okay, my partner really doesn't cancel anymore at all. This actually did happen. Maybe they didn't make such a grand gesture and they were saying, look at me, I'm, changing and I'm a good boyfriend or good girlfriend, but it's more like it happened throughout, and you guys may have conversations, but you see the effort and it's visible. And on top of that, it doesn't go back, right? Because sometimes when people change too quickly, it goes back again. No, this one was gradual and slow, but it's permanent. That's really important. And the very last one, which is very specific to avoidant individuals. People who are not avoidant don't do this as often. This is really common for both dismissive and fearful. And it's asking some form of recognition, asking or wanting some form of recognition on their improvement. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to say, oh, look at me, I'm so great, and it's like a grand gesture or they're some form of expectation. But it can be more like in a conversation where maybe it happens again and they may say, I'm working on it and I hope that you see that I've been making improvement. Something along the lines of them really genuinely showing you, because avoidants like recognition, it helps them improve, but it's also them asking you because they want to know that they're recognized. It's actually a form of them being committed to this relationship because they value your opinion. So they may say something along the lines of, by the way, yesterday I was really stressed and I was really busy, but I still showed up and I hope that you're proud, right? Something along those lines. That's really important. Something where they're trying to show you and they want your love as well. Okay. Sorry if that didn't make a lot of sense. That's pretty much all I have for you today. Go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.